Another aspect of being an architect is building the right help chain. So andon is another term for this. So this is the lean jargon word for it. I do my best to avoid jargon. I'm not always successful. Um, and for those that use the word andon and have good familiarity with it, then it's not jargon to you, which is great. But for most organizations, it's an inaccessible term. And even when we understand it and look at some of the more popular examples, they're very much manufacturing examples, and they don't we can't port the solution into our own space. So help chain is basically how do we connect the help to the problem, right? How do we link them together? And it's essentially five things. First, we need a definition of a problem. So what is a problem, right? If I believe that we're behind schedule at 3% behind schedule, and my boss believes we're behind schedule when we're 20% behind schedule, we're not going to be on the same page, right? One person is going to be, waving their arms around saying we got to act, and another person's going, calm down, everything's fine. So what is a problem? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? It doesn't matter as long as we have, well, it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter as much as being aligned, as having a common definition of what is a problem. Second, and I'm not an artist, so this is one of those things. I'll tell you what it is. It's a magnifying glass. How do we see that it's a problem? How do we spot it? Right? How do we know it's there? There's a lot of problems where the first detection is well after it occurs. So how do we get creative and smart about detecting problems at the right place? Product development. I do a lot of work in product development. Very, very common, where we don't find out that we're behind schedule until we get to a milestone that we're missing or a gate that we're missing. But if I can build more granular work with a high cadence and high transparency, I can find out this week that we're behind a day, right? A small increment. We may not have to act, but at least we understand that we're behind. Third, we need a mechanism to escalate that, right? So how are we going to escalate that, right? Is it an email? Hopefully not. Email's a bad place to put important information. Is it a light? That's really the source of this idea of being an andon. Is it a text? Is it a meaning that already exists? Do we jump up and down? That sometimes works. But as long as we all agree this is how we're going to escalate or elevate or connect that problem, then we're in the right place. We need to decide who we're going to elevate or escalate that to. The root case is that we elevate it to the boss, but they might not be the right person. There's a lot of environments where that's not the right person. There might be a technical expert that can help better, could be a peer, could be an internal supplier of resources, but we have to be clear who that is. If we raise it to our boss and all they end up doing is going to get us help somewhere else, it's not an efficient design. We're not connecting the help to the problem. And then last, we need a way to respond, a clear expectation, right? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 5 days? What's the standard? So how do we respond? So when we get this right, we have, 5 elements, right? Definition of the problem. How do we find it? How do we escalate it? Who do we escalate it to? And how do they respond? And we don't have to worry about lights and cords like you might see at Toyota. We can simply ask those questions and say, how do we get the help to the problem? That's what we're trying to do. And again, our job as leaders is to architect that, to make sure our ability to manage abnormal conditions is in place and people aren't sinking, aren't guessing, et cetera.